I was like, part of me wanted to be like, do you want a little break or something? But I
I
didn't want
was
to interrupt,
I like
your
my face is
mood.
red now, but like my I think I went pale for a second. I was like, oh no, like I was like, this isn't good. I got
Fucking
like
trooper.
like like Gaviston type stuff, and I was like, should I just pound this right now?
I think it was right when we had first kind of started talking about eat. I noticed that you were kind of like, you looked like
Yes,
you were kind of
that's exactly when
faded.
it was. Exactly when I was like, oh no. And I was like, this conversation is going so well. Like, I don't want to redo this, or I just like, let's just. Unfortunately, it passed. But excuse me while I.
Yeah, welcome back to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It's been quite some time since we've done one of these, and we're getting things started with a little bit of a bang with a huge name, Kyle Roof. You've probably heard the name if you've done SEO for any amount of time. He's the co-founder of an SEO agency, High Voltage SEO. He's the co-creator of a popular SEO tool called Page Optimizer Pro. He's the co-founder of Internet Marketing Gold, which is an SEO community with over 3,000 members, and they are focused on doing a lot of testing. And he's spoken at pretty much every SEO conference in the world that's worth mentioning. Done a bunch of podcasts, all that stuff. And maybe the most interesting thing, and one of the things he's most known for, is he became a household name in SEO when he won a Google ranking contest using lorem ipsum content, which is essentially just gibberish kind of Latin placeholder content a few years back. And so yeah,
Yeah.
with that, that is Kyle Roof. Did I miss anything, Kyle?
No, I think you nailed it. Thanks so much. Perfect.
Well, not to mention he's a family man. I mean, where do you find the time, dude? You're a maniac in the industry.
It all comes down to a loving and supporting family that doesn't mind if I'm not around that much. In fact, they might prefer it. They might prefer it.
Truthful answer. Awesome. Um, yeah, so just to kind of start things off, I know you've talked about this a million times before, but go ahead and give us the Cliffs notes, the Spark notes on your lorem ipsum victory, because I know a lot of people are still talking about that to this day.
Yeah, they really are. They really are. It was a few years ago.
Uh-huh.
The competition was a 30-day competition, and you had to have a fresh domain. So it was a real sprint. And after the fresh domain, you could do anything you wanted. Um, and it was for the term rhinoplasty Plano. Rhinoplasty is a nose job, and Plano is right outside of Dallas, Texas.
Hmm.
And yeah, so my team and I, we entered 27 other professionals, or people that were pretty proud of their SEO entered. At the end of the month, we took fifth. Um, but nobody's really lighting the world on fire because that is a pretty short amount of time. The guy that won, I think, was on page 8. We were on page 9. Um, but about 2 weeks later, and not doing anything to the site went to page 1. And number 7 is about 2 weeks after that, it went to number 1. And then a couple weeks after that, we were number 1 organic and number 1 in maps. And then shortly thereafter, we wiped out the maps and we were the knowledge panel. So we were Rhinoplasty Plano, which was pretty funny. And the reason that it's now in SEO lore is because the site was written in lorem ipsum, which is gibberish text.
Hmm.
And what we did was the math for how many times we needed rhinoplasty Plano, the exact keyword in specific places, how many times we needed variations of it, how many times we needed contextual terms, and then we crassly copied and pasted those terms into the lorem ipsum in very specific places on the page. And it was an effort to show that well, you do need to write good copy to convert because you want people to do something when they come to your site. A good copy has nothing to do with ranking. Ranking
Hmm.
is math based because Google isn't reading the page. Google is looking at the page for specific terms in specific places. And if you can satisfy the math, you can rank very, very well.
True. And so I was wondering, so you used, or correct me if I'm wrong, but you did use POP to inform the decisions as far as where to insert the keywords in specific places in the article, did you not?
Yeah, that's correct. So we use the tool, and basically the tool said, okay, you need your counts to be this here. Like the top 4 places to put a keyword, for example, are in your URL, your title tag, your H1, and then paragraph tags. And then after that, though, the counts really come down to in different areas, how many times you're using variations of that term, how many times you're using contextual terms. And so it
Hmm.
was using the tool for those kind of counts and then putting them in. So other places such as like your other headings like H2s and H3s, um, other paragraph text, that kind of stuff, anchor links, all of that. And then so those counts, and then that's what we put on the page.
Keyword variations, aka LSI keywords, or at least that's what I always kind of knew them as, which I've seen a lot of people kind of dumping on recently. I've seen a bunch of people just saying like LSI keywords are not real, which I never really understood why they would say something like that. Is that something you've seen, or do you have any thoughts on that?
I would define variations as often very close synonyms
Mm-hmm.
or very close construction of your target term.
Mm-hmm.
So, like lawyer for attorney, for example, I would call LSI, which old school SEOs hate that term, as contextual terms. They provide context and meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as people want to say that Google gets better and better and better, they talk about that this is something that Google would never use or cannot use. Something that's really fun that's recent is that Yandex leak.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really interesting about that, what stood out to me, is that BM25 is a ranking factor. And BM25 is basically TF-IDF with word count.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bag of words model. What that means is all the words go into a bag, and then it doesn't matter about grammar, uh, uh, position with other keywords like vectoring, any of that. It's just it's counting the words
So
in
it's
specific
even
places.
so maybe even more crude than a lot of people are expecting.
Well, it's exactly what fits with the models that we have.
Yeah.
You know, that's why the like something like pop works still, because we're using that type of a thing. Now, what's interesting, and this is a number that's not mine, but I've read that Yandex results and Google results are about 70% the same,
Mm-hmm.
because Yandex was built to be a Google clone.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted, and I'm confident they stole some engineers from Google. So if BM25 is what they're using, and it is a very close approximation of what Google is using, it shows us this is pretty much how they're doing it. And it also makes a lot of sense too, because this is the cheapest way to do it. You know,
Yeah.
if you can tap in, this is the cheapest way to go. And the bottom line, it's always about making money. Whatever they can do that's going to get good results, the cheapest, that's absolutely, they might have the technology to do it a different way. And I'm confident they do. But I think they're only going to add into on that, whatever that base is, for very specific keywords and very specific situations, like the gross keywords that people really just try to spam. I can see them putting extra layers on top of it. But at a base level, this is probably how it works. And those old school SEOs that hate that term LSI are really going to be upset, because LSI terms fit perfectly in this model. You know, that the idea is
Wow.
that contextual terms, you're just counting them. You know, you're counting those contextual terms, and then you can gain meaning based on that. Okay, we're talking about this particular thing based on term frequency of contextual terms or LSI terms.
It would be funny to do a little test where you just basically stuffed up all the keywords and variations, LSI, whatever you want to call them, right at like the beginning of the article in the first like paragraph or two. Still making actual sentences out of them and not in the rest of the article, and just see how it stacks up to some
Yeah.
actual already ranking stuff.
I do know some people that are not overly scrupulous that will just do chunks of contextual terms and variations like in hidden text, and they do quite well.
In
Really?
hidden text.
Yeah, just do chunks of it, like just a whole block of just like kind of just taking, okay, these are contextual terms, and just put it in some hidden text and blocks, and those guys do pretty well.
Hell yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's not something I would have really thought was still kind of playing,
It's because
quite
Google's so
honestly. Like,
smart, right?
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's pretty wild.
I love seeing that kind of stuff in 2023 because so much stuff is just like completely written off. But then, uh, yeah, you just see people getting away with some of the craziest shit sometimes, and I'm here
Yeah.
for it. But yeah, moving on, Kyle. So I've seen a bunch of people talking about lorem ipsum again, just with kind of the rise of AI content, and some people are saying, I've seen lorem ipsum still ranking, now in 2023, and I wanted to know what your thoughts are on if you think lorem ipsum could rank in 2023, and when is the last time you tried to rank with it?
Yeah, so I've got several sites still up right now that are lorem ipsum sites, and they're ranking in the number one spot for their terms. Um,
Hell yeah.
I always, like if this is going to be the topic, I always do a quick double check, and I checked this morning, and they're all still up, and they're all
Yeah.
in the 1 and 2 spot. Most of them have two, like the first and second spot, and they're just lorem ipsum pages with the math done. So then again, you
Yeah.
copy and paste within the lorem ipsum.
So just write
Um,
good content. Maybe not the best advice.
no, in fact, it's pretty terrible advice. The only thing though is that in fairness, your good copy should hit the counts. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so if you write good copy, it should satisfy the counts pretty well. So
Mm-hmm.
that when you come and do an SEO check, you should just be tweaking slightly. And what I found is a lot of people just are terrible at writing. And
Mm-hmm.
so they'll write about a topic and they'll just miss it completely. And then they'll be like, oh, this tool is telling me it's, how am I supposed to do it this way? And it's like, well, you missed the point. You
Yeah.
missed what you were actually supposed to write about. And that's kind of where often like the intersection or divergence of good copy and SEO copy is when somebody just can't write good copy to begin with.
Yeah, or they're starting the site or whatever with SEO and focus, and they just really don't care about the topic, or they don't know much about the topic, like you said. And yeah, maybe they didn't do a proper outline. But yeah, like you were saying, if you do a proper outline and you're actually, you know what you're talking about the topic, and you actually write the entire article based on the outline of all the things that you should include, you should be pretty close to the counts that any tool should give you, right?
That's exactly right. And if you're not, the problem is writing an outline sucks. Who
Yeah.
likes to do it? It's boring. It takes so much time. It's so much faster just to sit down and start writing.
Hey, use
But when you do that,
ChatGPT for it now. Hey, ChatGPT, give me the
Yeah.
outline for
you
this
should.
article.
That's a good way to do it, to be honest. That's a great way to do it. Like, what section should I have on this page?
Yeah,
And you're
Mhm.
probably going to get a really good jump start.
for sure. I feel like it's better at that kind of stuff than actually like writing, content that's actually any kind of length, just kind of more like a brainstorming or planning type tool. But we can get
Yeah.
more into that.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead,
Now,
Nick.
those assets that you've got ranking, are those predominantly like local SERPs or some affiliate maybe internationally?
You're right. Most are in the local space. So kind of like
Okay,
a keyword plus location.
gotcha.
And your
Have you ever
agency,
tried?
sorry, go ahead.
Well, have you ever tried anything, maybe like a national ranking type of term with Lorem Ipsum by chance?
Not in forever, to be honest with you. I can't
Okay.
remember the last time I did that, so I don't want to oversell it. The stuff
Okay.
that
All
I've
right. Gotcha.
the stuff that I've got right now is definitely keyword plus location.
Okay.
Gotcha. And I also saw that you used branded Web 2.0s in that competition, which I thought was pretty interesting, or not super interesting, especially, Web 2.0s used to be a lot more broadly used a little bit back. But we actually still like to use them, not too much, but just kind of as kind of like a link diversity type tool, or just kind of in the very beginning of the ranking process. Do you still use those branded Web 2.0s at all now in 2023?
Yeah, I totally agree with how you just described using them at the beginning of a project. Some safer links to get in gets you some diversity. I also like to own my brand name across the web because the last thing I would want is a competitor coming in and taking my brand name and then smirching it.
Yeah.
So like your brand dot that web2.0.com, your brand name dot not web2.0.com, and get a bunch of those just to kind of own the brand name. And then I'm not going to post on them, but I'll put a description of the company, obviously the company name, the address, the phone number, and a link back to the organization page is how I would approach it.
Yeah, I thought that
So
was
it's
super
almost like,
interesting. Go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say it's just almost like owning, all your social profiles, et cetera. I mean, we advocate for, getting all that started up early on, social profiles. But yeah, Web 2.0s is something I've never really thought of that way.
Yeah, I treat them like citations, really. It's a citation that you just completely control.
Sure.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome because normally the way that we do Web 2.0s is, basically make a little 3 to 5 page site with some content that's, niche relevant. And yeah, it just acts as like a little mini website that links out to your target. But I really like the idea of the way that you're doing it as more of like a branding tool. And I feel like it's even like more natural than what we
Yeah.
do. And I think it's something I'm definitely gonna play around with, or
Yeah, I
just kind
like
of
it.
steal your idea here in the future.
Go for it. Now, I haven't done this in a long time, but I remember like, I don't know, 10 years, 9 years ago or so, um, doing like smaller, like mini sites or micro sites, if you will, with the Web 2.0s and putting stuff on it. And I remember not really seeing any extra benefit than just having one page with the brand information. And so, um,
Gotcha.
if you are getting success with that, I totally do it. If you aren't sure, I would test it out with maybe just doing a little less to maybe save yourself some time and some budget.
Yeah, good tip. Yeah, it's not something or that we really monitor, to be completely honest. Like this kind of like beginning stages of the link building process. It's kind of just
Yeah.
like we just have a little process that we follow. We do a bunch of the stuff and just boom, just throw it all out there, and then just move forward with starting up with some guest post edits, editorial links, horror, whatever, all that good stuff. We don't really like sit there and monitor it, but definitely, yeah, definitely interesting. Definitely give that a try. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, one more thing about Pop is I saw on your that you actually didn't have any dev experience when you started creating the tool that
Yeah.
you then used to help rank win that competition. Um, And it's something that Nick and I have talked about a little bit as far as, hiring some developers to code some things for us. And so I wanted to ask you, how exactly did you go about, monitoring the work or just knowing that you're not getting, taken for a ride or just knowing that things are kind of moving in the right direction without any kind of dev background?
It's a great question. It's hard. The biggest thing you have to look at is the output. Is the output what you want it to be? You know, so even if it's a little janky on the inside, if it is the output that you want, then you are getting something, right?
Hmm.
But something that we've gone through several developers as this has progressed, and we found some stuff from way back that really wasn't done well. And I think it wasn't done well because the developer didn't think we were going to do well. I think
Mm.
I think initially just thought like, I don't know, these guys are throwing money away. It's something that's stupid.
I I
This
feel
surely will not
yeah.
last.
Yeah, I
So
feel like I've
oh,
only
please.
been raked over the coals, so to speak, anytime I've ever tried that. And
Oh, I forgot
there's
about
a
that.
oh yeah, I've gone down the route and it's never gone well for me. But it's one of
Mm,
these things. There was a quote by oh my gosh, what was his name? I can't think of it right now. But you've got to be able to inspect what you expect. And in that regard, I definitely just got completely trashed anytime I've attempted it. So
That's
I've
one of
got
the OMG
PTSD
machines
when it
guys.
yeah, it is. I for the life of me, I can't remember his name right now. The
Steven?
local guy. Yeah,
Greg?
Steven. Yeah,
Yeah.
Steve. Yeah.
Right.
I would say something that has helped us is having two devs working at the same time. They might be working on different things, but they, in the end, will check each other's work. And they're not like in the same office. They
Pit
are
them against each
independent.
other. Hunger Games.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
like, it's just
smart.
like, like, hey, let's before we push something live, let's just do a quick internal check on it. And then you've got, somebody else just asking questions about like notation. Like, what
Mm.
does this mean? Can you notate the code a little bit more so that if that other dev has to come in and fix something or work on it, they know what's going on. So that's probably good. But of course, then that does raise the cost.
Mm.
Two devs are
For
twice as
sure.
expensive as one dev.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah, but then if they're working harder, then it saves you the costs of, one of them
that's
just
true.
half-assing and giving you the kind of whatever gets by, I guess, so to speak.
That's very true.
Any tips on where to source devs as far as location or actually just where to find them on the internet for someone that would be
I'll tell you
interested
what.
in?
So FOP is Python on the back end and then JavaScript on the front end. And if you can find a dev that can do both JavaScript and Python, you basically found an asset engineer. It
Mm-hmm.
is unbelievable to me how segmented the developers are in certain skills and that they don't really like to cross over into the scraping or the back end computation side and then also the front end display side. Finding devs has been a real challenge. We've gone through just about every platform. We've had to try a lot of guys. We ended up putting like a little quiz together just to kind of like get some baseline. But I don't know how
Mm-hmm.
many guys have come in telling us that, oh, I'm the best dev you've ever seen in your entire life. And like they think it's as a Python project. I say most Python projects like are probably a skill level like or difficulty level like 3, right? And Pop is at a difficulty level like 8. And a lot of guys come in like, I can do your little tool. How hard could this be? And they quit after 3 days. They're like, I have no
Yikes.
idea what any of this means. So that has been super. And we've even gone through like some of those really high end platforms. Same thing. So it's really just, you got to keep plugging away. And I think maybe one of the best ways to do it is if you've got a really strong dev, have them bring somebody under their wing, like hire somebody
Mm.
they can at least set up like the foundation of what this is, right? They can at least get into the game, and then you want to give them smaller tasks to try to build them up into a fuller dev role. But you probably don't know if you do it that way, you probably don't know like for at least 4 to 6 months if they're going to be any good at all. Like even if they make it
Jesus.
past to that, so it's really hard.
That's
Best of
scary.
luck. Best of luck if you're jumping in and doing it.
You're not gonna lie, you're scaring the shit out of me.
Yeah, I mean
Maybe
that's
I'll stay
yeah,
away from
that's
it.
rough.
There are a lot of tools though that are so much easier. Like if you just had something that was really just a JavaScript output, and some basic computation, that probably won't be a problem. It's when you really want to get into anything complex. But I wouldn't recommend building a page optimizer pro type tool. I mean, that is all in. Like be prepared to be all in.
Wouldn't do
But there's
that.
a lot. a lot you can do, I think, a lot smaller scale that I think you can be very successful at, and it won't be as difficult.
Yeah, we would definitely want to start with something a little bit easier than pop, and also wouldn't want to step on your toes at all. I think it's
what
Yeah.
what what year
Plenty
did
of
you
room.
start that project, Pop?
So we it was in 2017. We were using another tool internally in the agency, and they had this little feature that we really liked, and we were getting a lot of success with it in terms of like an optimization score. And they changed the tool on us. And I was like it was one of those things where you click update and all of a sudden that whole feature's gone. And they're like, "Oh, that feature
mm,
wasn't that great." And I was like, "Well, we were kind of using it." And I was like, "Can we roll back?" And they're like, "We can't." I was like, "Can I buy a version of the old thing?" And like, "No, no, it wasn't that good at all." I was like, "Well, then can I have it if it wasn't that good?" And they're like, "No." and,
that's interesting.
and that,
It's kind of
Yeah.
like the stories you hear. A lot of people when they end up like starting websites or they have some good idea, it's basically they were creating something that they wanted themselves,
Yeah.
which is kind of what you did with the tool that you just weren't
It
able to
makes
do
me
anymore. So you needed the tool. You were making it for yourself essentially.
and
makes
that's
me
what we
think
did.
of
Go ahead.
Vitalik in Ethereum. His WoW character got nerfed, so he got pissed off and came up with a way to fix it.
Yeah,
Now we've got
yeah.
Ethereum. It's crazy. Yeah.
No, and
Oh.
there's some interesting maxims in development, and one of them is that your code needs to be flexible enough that people can use it in a way that you didn't imagine.
Hmm.
And we have a lot of people that use pop in a way that I wouldn't use it, but they've figured it out for their situation, and they know that if they put in this information, they get this output, and they're successful with it. And it's
Hmm.
not a way that I would have envisioned using the tool. Some people use some of the features, that I look as like complementary. They use it in their own SEO as the main part of it,
Hmm.
and they're very successful with it. So something that we try to do is when we make major updates, we do try to keep all the legacy stuff around somewhere so that if people are using the tool in a particular way that I did not, and they can still continue to do so. But that's been a challenge as well because it didn't really occur to me like the first time we made a really large update to like the interface, for example, we had people that had SOPs. They had their SOPs and they had them all done, and then they had to redo all of their SOPs, and that's something that never really occurred to me, like what a burden that would be that you're putting on your users when you're
Hmm.
making those types of changes. And so you really have to. Then I remember like, oh my God, I'm an asshole because I was in the exact same situation, and that's why I built this tool. So you really try to be mindful of how people are using the tool, how they've integrated into their systems, and try to be mindful of that as you make changes or make updates to the process.
Gotcha. Interesting. I've never really thought about it like that, but definitely makes sense. One more thing before we kind of jump into the meat and the potatoes of the podcast. We're going to talk about EAT a bit. But I saw that you actually have a SEO testing patent, and that's actually not something that I had heard about before. I didn't even know something like that could exist. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that and just let us know what's up with your patent.
Yeah. After the rhinoplasty plano fun times, Google wrote a rule after the site went live that said you can't have pages that don't make sense to the reader but contain keywords.
Mm.
And I actually remember looking it up and putting the thing into the Wayback Machine and finding out that that rule went 1 week after my site went public, which was which is hilarious. And so
Hmm.
I think I might be the only person on the planet that has both a Google rule and an SEO patent. Like
Wow.
I don't think there are too many people that have can claim can claim both. But the SEO patent, to be perfectly honest, I thought it was more of a marketing concept than anything. Where I was in a different testing group, and the person in that group, she was like, "Hey, I think she had patents. She has several patents on other things. She's like, I think we can patent this. Do you want to go for it?" And I was kind of like, "All right." Like I never really. I think it was really just to get the patent pending was the marketing concept. And
Gotcha.
then 3 years later, all of a sudden, it comes in the mail that the patent's been
Wow.
approved, and it's
So,
like,
so is
hey,
it really like tremendously bureaucratic to go about doing something like that?
yeah, so you really want to use an attorney. Like there are people that's what they do, and they can write things up appropriately because it has all these like diagrams that I wouldn't know how to draw, and different formatting and stuff like that. I think it costs in the neighborhood of like $4,000 to $5,000 to do the whole thing, and then but it really was just for the concept of saying patent pending as the initial thing, and then we got it.
So
So
can
that
That's
was
you
awesome.
hilarious.
Yeah.
can you speak on what the patent actually is, like what it's for?
It's on the very basic testing model of creating multiple identical pages and then tweaking one thing on one of them and then gauging the response from there. I mean, that's the most basic definition of it. It's just a very basic testing model.
Basically like
And it
single variable testing type stuff.
right, and it wasn't anything that was had been patented
Gotcha.
as a model. In fairness, the patent could just be, the scientific method. I think you
Gotcha.
could make a pretty decent argument that that's all that was patented, but
Gotcha,
I still have
gotcha.
it, and I'll have it
Oh,
for a few more years.
Well, speaking of
ultra
the
bragging rights, if you ask me. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
for
super
sure.
cool.
For sure, for sure. Um, so you were talking about the testing you were doing for the patent as well as the other testing group you were in, and I guess you also do testing now in IMG. What are some of the most interesting tests over the past year or so that you've done, and what did you learn from them? Or is this something
Uh,
that you have exclusively for IMG?
no, the biggest problem is I forget the test that I run. I get asked this, they're like, what are you working on? I was like, I don't know. What have I done recently? So something that I enjoyed recently was finding out. So Chat GPT, if you ask about current events,
Mhm.
it'll say like, I don't really know. I don't go back that far. Or it says like, I only know to 2021. But then I started asking about major sporting events starting in 2023. Excuse me, starting in 2022. This was at the end of 2022. And I said, like, who just won the World Cup? Because it had just happened a few days before and it didn't know. And then I kind of backtracked through major sporting events. And then I found that where its information was solid was February of 2021 for the Super Bowl. It could tell you who
Mhm.
won the Super Bowl and what the score was and some of the stats. What was really interesting, though, is that it gave an answer for who won the Kentucky Derby, which is in June.
Mhm.
Uh, but it actually gave the wrong information. It gave the information about the Belmont Stakes. So it gave an answer, but it was and a confident one, but it was very, very wrong. Um, which probably highlights some of the issues with AI to begin with. But that was really interesting to me to find kind of exactly where its knowledge kind of cuts off, and that was February of 2021 is where it knows current events reliably.
I think someone actually had mentioned this in our Facebook group, SEO Roundtable, and yeah, just the idea that the AI will very confidently make up answers if it doesn't
Yes,
quite know the answer. Um, yeah, definitely interesting.
and that's an inherent problem to AI as a single answer search engine. Is
Hmm.
that what happens when it's wrong?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I got the answer here. I got one answer. I'm so happy, and it turns out it's a very wrong answer. Or there are also things that are subjective, like what's the best apple pie recipe?
Hmm.
It'll give you one, but is that actually the best? Like I don't know.
Mm.
How does it know? So like single answer type things, I think will only be useful in the same way they're useful for what Google has now. Like what time is it in,
Yeah.
in California, or
Hmm.
what's the weather like today? Those kind of things, and that's really what voice search was as well. People like voice search is going to change everything, and voice search just turned into hey Google, what's 12 times 14? Like
Yeah.
that's what they that's what they use it for. How many ounces is in a cup? That
Hmm.
kind of those kind of questions, and that's what I think the Chat GPT will be really good for in those single answer type things. But that's really just a featured snippet type feature than an actual search engine.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking about. Basically the chat GPT or whatever, just taking over kind of the feature snippet area and then just having the,
Yeah.
10 blue links below that. Or I guess it's infinite blue links now, the new scrolling. But we'll get into AI a little bit more. It's something I'm kind of having to hold myself back on talking more about right now because it's on everyone's mind. But yeah, so what you've been doing is you've been kind of going around doing the podcast tour our circuit right now, talking about EAT or EEAT. I don't even know how we're supposed to say it anymore. Maybe EAT.
Neat.
Um,
Yes.
um, so yeah, just kind of tell us like what you're doing, why you're going around talking about EAT so much, and yeah, just what you think about it.
Well, I think a lot of the last couple of years, Google's been really hostile towards affiliate sites, and you have to ask yourself: is it just Google hates affiliate sites? And what a lot of what I was realizing with a lot of the updates is figuring out if something's a real business, like who's responsible for the website and who's responsible for the content. And affiliate sites, by nature, are usually trying to hide that fact.
Hmm.
And that's what I realized that they were running afoul of these types of principles where Google's talking about these things that they're looking for in a website. And so within POP, we built a tool to measure things going through the quality rater guidelines and uh, picking out things that a bot can find. So keep in mind that Google can't look at your website and be like, oh, this is a legit website. It's crawling it, it's coming through. And so it has to look for particular signals uh, that it can find, and then determine if this site should be in the index in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And so having a lot of success putting those in and maintaining rankings, and then also recovering rankings as well for sites that appear to have been hit with that. And that's kind of that's as you said, that's the circuit. That's what I've been working on and what we've been doing.
Gotcha. And you're totally right. Like affiliates especially hate doing the things that any normal online business would do. They absolutely hate
Yeah.
it. They hate taking the bare minimum steps to just be like, hey, Google, but also the world, hey, people on my website, we're a legitimate business, not just some sketchy,
Yeah.
dude in a basement just giving you some random information that he found someone on someone else's website.
Something that I realize is that a lot of people, I think, honestly don't comprehend that if they're taking money through their website, that's a business.
Hmm.
Right.
Like, no, it's just a website. Like if you are receiving income, you have a business of some sort, and you should have a legitimate business setup for that. And I think that might be the disconnect. A lot of people think, I'm just putting up a website. You have a business, you have income,
For sure.
and you need to report accordingly. And that's where I think that's why they don't want to do a lot of things that you probably need for you, because then it would be going through the hoops of establishing an actual business.
An actual, yeah.
For
Yeah, it
sure.
ups the cost of startup for the average affiliate
Significantly.
site, which
Significantly,
yeah.
right? Like, having like a business mailing address could cost you $50 a month, but if you're only pulling in
Right.
10, to start, that's a pretty rough, you know, like
Yeah.
amount to swallow real quick.
Speaking of
Definitely.
Speaking of business mailing addresses, what would you advise someone to do if they, needed a physical location that's $50 a month? Like what exactly would someone do to get a business mailing address like that?
Yeah, you can do one of two things. You can get a registered agent, which is a great idea if you've got like an LLC, and a registered agent is the person that would take your mail, and you can use that address. Or you can also use a business mailing address, and a lot of businesses do that. Like businesses that don't necessarily like walk-in visitors, for example, they might use a different address for mailing, and you can use that as well. That can be your official registered address for the business, and that's what I would use, and that's what I would put on the site as well. And I would not just like put it on the site, but I would put it within the organization schema. What kind of business are you?
Hmm.
Are you a company? Are you a local business? Are you this or that? And then within that schema, I would also then put that address, and I think that's a huge step forward for most sites.
Gotcha. And so right now we kind of started backwards. We're kind of talking about the T in EAT right now, which is trustworthiness. I always get them
In
kind of.
fairness, that is the most important one. So in the revamped Rater guidelines, they have like all these circles going around, and trust is in the middle. So the very foundational um, point is who is responsible for this website, and who is responsible for this content.
Hmm.
Those are the two main things. And it doesn't matter how much expertise or experience or authoritativeness, if you're not trustworthy, it doesn't matter. So it is imperative to tick off as many boxes as you can in that trust factor before you even get worried about expertise, experience, or authoritativeness.
Yeah. And so the way I kind of think about the T in EAT is in its simplest form, it's kind of what I said a minute ago. It's all the things that a normal online business would do to show that they are legitimate. And, of course, it's not being very specific, but what do you think about that statement?
100%. That's exactly what it is. Where are you located? You
Hmm.
know, like that's kind of step number one.
So where you're located,
Who's
phone
behind this
Who
number,
project?
runs it?
Yeah,
who runs.
exactly. Who's behind this? And then like who is writing this content?
Hmm.
And that kind of bleeds a little into maybe experience or expertise, but is there an actual human doing this is really a huge point. Now, in the quality rater guidelines, it does say that like you can have like a staff writer, or a website can be responsible for the content, but then you also have to make that clear.
Hmm.
Then that it wouldn't just be like putting the name staff writer; that would be putting it within the author schema of the article.
Hmm.
That this person is responsible for this particular piece of content. Because if you think about it, what if somebody follows this advice and they're harmed? What are they supposed to do?
Right.
Hmm.
You know, like where can they go? Or what if they followed the advice and it's incorrect and they need to tell the website that it's incorrect? Like, hey, you actually got this wrong and this could harm somebody.
Like contact
Um,
form or something.
I got the wrong product. How can I get it back? Or I got this, but it's in different doses. Can I still take it? Those kind of
Mhm.
questions, which are very important questions and can lead to a lot of problems if the information is correct. Um, then if nobody's taking responsible for this content or they're responsible for the website or responsible for whatever's happening, then by nature, I can see why Google wouldn't want to put it in the index. You
Hmm.
know, where
Sure.
does somebody go when they have issues? They can't go to the site where they have no idea who actually is running the site or who actually wrote the content.
For sure. And as far as ticking the boxes go, I guess some other boxes you could tick would be things like, terms of service, privacy policy. What else were you missing as far as T goes?
Um, yeah, those would be the big ones. I would also put in there contact information. So not just a blank contact form
Hmm.
on one page that everyone that goes absolutely nowhere, right? Put in your name, thing, click, you submitted.
Mhm.
Like you need a lot more contact information than that. And most companies, in big and small, have different departments for things. They have a contact for refunds. They have a contact for support. They have a contact for media or
Hmm.
PR, stuff like that. So you might want to have different email addresses for different departments on your site and easily identifiable. So that contact and the quality rater guidelines you talk about that different sites will have different needs. So I would just go as much as you can. Like I would gauge the field, see what the big players are doing and got, and then I would try to get within that range because it's never just ticking one box. You're like, I have this and they don't. That's not it. It's ticking enough of the boxes,
Mm.
to get past the review. And also, I would note as we're talking about this, and this is a lot of questions have come to me about this. Like, I did this, but I don't see any ranking improvement. Well, you're not. None of this is a ranking factor that it's going to move you up. But it's the kind of thing like at some point Google will check your site for this,
Mhm.
Hmm.
and not the human part, not a quality rater guideline, because that's also a thing that people are a little confused about. But at some point, a bot will come and look for these things on your site, and usually probably once you hit a certain threshold in traffic, and then once you're there, you want to have demonstrated enough so that you pass that test, so that you don't drop once that happens. So that's what we're going after here is not ranking improvement, but maintaining that ranking once you hit a certain traffic threshold, and Google wants to check your site for these factors.
So that's something I've been wondering about is that as far as I understood it, or I think Google states it, is that EAT is like you had mentioned uh, for their quality raters, actual humans that are going in and looking at stuff. And then I see other people speculating that they think that basically some of EAT is already being taken care of by the algo, and of course you expect over time as the algo gets better, they figure out how to do it, that more and more of this EAT stuff will be pushed into the algo. So I was just wondering what you think about, how much of EAT do you think is actually baked into the algo right now, and how much is purely quality rater stuff, humans?
Well, the quality rater guidelines, that isn't to rank anything. What that's doing is that's checking the results to see if the results are what they actually wanted them to be.
Hmm.
And so there are going to be things that are baked into the algo because they're trying to produce those results that are trustworthy. That's they're trying to get those results up through what they can do through a bot, and then they're having a human come back through and evaluate the SERPs to say like, okay, yeah, we did well, or no, we need to improve some things. So that's what the quality rater guidelines are a human check on this type of stuff to see if it actually worked. So that
Gotcha.
means inherently there's stuff baked in. There are things that they're doing. Now the quality raters they go a little bit farther because they can.
Hmm.
They can check outside the site. They can go beyond things and look at other things to really see if this is in line with what they want. But that means they're trying to do it over here bot style, and then they're checking with humans to see if it actually worked. So there is a lot of stuff in there that within the guidelines that is I think exactly baked into the algo. But again, not a ranking algo necessarily, but more of a sweep. Like did we clean out the closet of the sites that we didn't want,
Like
and
getting
are the
getting
sites in there
slapped.
exactly? Yeah.
Gotcha. Um, okay, I think we've covered T pretty well. Do you have any questions on T or anything, Nick?
And I don't think so. No, this
Okay,
seems
cool.
pretty full coverage.
So yeah, I guess we can move on to A next. We'll just go backwards. So yeah, A is authoritativeness. What are your thoughts on the A part of EAT, Kyle?
So what they talk about in the guidelines is this the go-to source? is this a go-to source for on the topic? And so what that informs me is that this is topical authority. A go-to source answers all the questions. The go-to source doesn't have just one page on it, and that's that, right? Like an authority is answering the questions that people would have. And so how I would go after authoritativeness is is topical coverage. I think that's exactly where that fits in. Um, One other thing that they talk about in multiple places, not just in the Raiders guidelines, but in like the webmaster guidelines, is UGC, user generated content.
Hmm.
And that's when people are asking questions. And so if something is an authority, people are going to ask questions, right? They're going to ask, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Because they're going to that source because they believe it's an authority on the subject and they have a question to ask about it. And so I think UGC is also an extremely strong signal. And that probably does bleed over into the other E's as well. But I really like topical coverage. And then I would also look at UGC to demonstrate authoritativeness.
So are you saying we should turn our blog comments back on?
I am. And you can moderate them. But that's another thing. You're like, oh, it's so hard to moderate. Oh. I mean, that's the argument against, right? Like, oh, there's so many spam things. Well, you can moderate them. Yeah, but yeah, and I would also make sure that the comments that are on there can actually be read by Google. There are tools that where Google can't read them, and then that's not going to help you at all. So I would just make sure that the comments can be read, but I would turn it on and I would moderate it. And I know it's a pain in the ass,
Gotcha.
but I think it's a very strong signal.
So I've heard, a lot of people, and I think this might have actually stemmed from a Google employee on Twitter. I can't remember who it was or what exactly they said, but a lot of people for a long time have speculated that the A in EAT was all about backlinks, was all about backlink authority versus topical authority, which you've been talking about. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, you can make the argument that backlinks are votes, and so the internet is saying that this is the place you want to go. I can see that, but I think backlinks are a different part of the algo, and that when they're doing this particular type of sweep for neat factors, then I would lean on topical coverage, and backlinks I would worry about for a different type of authoritativeness in terms of a different ranking factor, of an actual like positive ranking factor.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, Yeah, I've never really thought about it like that. That definitely makes sense because everything else about EAT is basically is focused on your website. Things they can
That's
find
right.
on your website. So it makes sense for A to be about the site as well. Okay, cool. Yeah, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, even just from like an auditing perspective, that just makes more sense because otherwise you'd have to train them to go on the back end, etc.
Yeah, their quality raters would have to pull up the site in Ahrefs and
Yeah,
look at the back.
Ahrefs, right?
Check out the spam score on each of the links.
Right. Spam score, yeah.
While we're here, so we're kind of in the camp of I think Matt Diggity might have said this phrase first, but we're in the SEO camp of do all the things.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, especially recently, as topical authority has become such a hot topic with I don't know if I'm going to say his name right, but Corey, the gentleman from
Corey's fine.
Turkey. But yeah, it's really become such a hot topic, and it's kind of like taken over a lot of the spotlight from backlink authority. So topical authority versus backlink authority, and so yeah, we're in the camp of kind of do all the things. So we think doing both is great, and I just wanted to know what you think about that.
Yeah, for sure. The one thing that you control the most is your own website. I mean, that's the only thing you control. It's the content that you're putting on. And what I found is the more you dial that in, the fewer outside signals you need. And so I would definitely, if I'm investing time, money, budget, energy, etc., I would do as much as I can on my site. And then I would go and do backlinks into it. Because I think if the tighter you get it on your site, the less outside juice you'll need. And there is a lot of ranking that you can do without any backlinks whatsoever, and slowly but surely raise the authority of site mainly through topical coverage. To be honest, is really the right way to look at it. Topical coverage, kind of for lower tier terms, and then you can continue to raise up and go after higher tier terms as you continue to win and gain more and more keywords.
Right. I think I saw you on a different podcast talk about upfront going after those zero search volume SERPs that a lot of people just leave ignored.
It's my bread and butter.
Definitely always.
We crush it doing those. I absolutely love them because everyone's not um, wasting their time. The absolute truism is that let's say we have sites that are exactly the same size and they have the exact same backlink profile. But you rank for 20,000 keywords and I rank for 2,000. If we launch the exact same page at the exact same time, you will outrank me. And that's because your site has more authority. It ranks for more keywords. And so I think foundationally, something that you need to do as part of your monthly, your quarterly sprints, or however you do your SEO campaigns, is how can we rank for more keywords? And the sites that win those terms, that hit page one, quickly and gain those terms, do better. And then those sites, those little pages, excuse me, the pages that are ranking quickly, they juice up. They're ranking for more terms. They're getting some clicks. They're bringing in impressions. So then when you link from those pages to your target pages, they start to perform a lot better. And you didn't need any external backlinks to do it. It was research to find terms that you can win quickly, and then taking advantage of the authority that you're building by virtue of ranking for those terms.
So
Right.
I'm assuming you would agree that you could also say the same in reverse. So if you had two different websites and each site had the exact same topical coverage, that the decision maker would then be backlink authority.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Gotcha. And I wanted to ask one more thing while we're on this. Yeah, because we had kind of just started talking about it, and because yeah, I'd seen you mention on a podcast a while back. I think it might have been with Diggity, and you had made some kind of remark as far as yeah, I rank without backlinks all the time. Kind of the same thing you did now, which as Diggity is a link builder, seemed to kind of catch you a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, and then I saw I was doing my homework for this podcast, and I saw you mentioned that that you can only go so far without backlinks for some things, and I was
For
hoping
some terms, yeah.
I was hoping you could just kind of expand on that a little bit for our audience.
I think it's some, well, it is true that the on page you can do for a particular keyword, the sidewalk will end at some point. If you're lucky, that sidewalk ends on page one, but sometimes for the more difficult terms, the sidewalk ends on page three. You've done the correct on page, and that's about as far as you can go. From there, what I like to do is build out supporting pages, like those zero search term type pages, link them together, link up, and then see what kind of push I can get. And sometimes that's all you need to do as well. And then after that, you do need backlinks. There's a point where that's as far, those techniques, they've gone as far as they can. You could maybe get there over time, but often in these projects, we don't have unlimited time. And so
So
where doing a backlink would come in.
So is that typically how you set up your content plan starting out? You've got your main targets, and then you build up these, smaller SERP targeting type content to build it up until you get that main position for the main term you're going after, or do you
That's
kind
right.
of build everything all in unison? Okay.
Well, I mean, you're going to want to, the only page that can't rank is the one that doesn't exist. And if you want to go after that target term, you do have to get that page up. So these things do probably happen at about the same time. But if you're looking kind of like step one, step two, step three, step one would be get that target page up. Step two would then be the supporting content for it. Step three would then be the backlinks you need.
Gotcha.
Perfect.
All right. Yeah, I guess we can go ahead and move on to or EE.
Yeah.
For those not aware, a new E was added to EAT. So yeah, Kyle, what's the new E? Is it a big change? Is it a small change? What's up?
The new E is experience. Um, Even in the quality rater guidelines, it's kind of interesting. They show expertise with a like a graduation cap. So your expertise would be your education, and then your experience would be your actual experience with something, or like time doing something would kind of count as the experience part of it.
Gotcha. And so yeah, can you kind of expand a little bit further on as far as satisfying this for Google? What websites need to be doing, especially affiliate websites, since they hate all this stuff?
The biggest thing is you need a real person. You need to demonstrate that you've got a real person doing this. Now, I don't think that Google is in the value judgment game where, is a degree from MIT better than a degree from Stanford? Who knows? Who cares? That's not the valuation point. So you don't necessarily need a PhD person, or you don't necessarily need a medical doctor, unless it's obvious that that's what you need. But to get past um, EAT guidelines, what you need to demonstrate this is a real person. So how I would do that is I would have an author bio page where within that, in the same ads, I would put links to social profiles, LinkedIn, something that might be a credentialing agency, other places where they might have profiles. And then on the articles that they write, within that article schema and the author schema, I would link back to that author bio page. So I'm trying to send enough signals to show this is an actual person. They're involved in our organization. Here's their bio on the site. And then if you want to go check them out, you can, although I'm confident that Google will not go and look. But it's the idea of getting enough of that information in there is the key.
Gotcha. And so, yeah, I'm not saying you would ever do such a thing, but if you were to
Here we
make an
go.
affiliate website and you did not want to, put your face as the person that's writing everything, and you wanted to make a fake persona, again, not saying you would ever do such a thing, but how would you go about doing that as far as things off your website? Not your author page, not your team page, not all that stuff, but actually, stuff like your social profiles and stuff like that. Like how far do you think someone needs to go as far as fleshing these things out to seem more legitimate for Google?
The first thing I wouldn't do is go to this person is not real and create a fake photo,
Mm-hmm.
because those are easily detected as fakes.
Mm-hmm.
Like 100% of the time. Even like, what if I change this pixel? What if I invert it? What if I make it black and white? None of that works. They're all
Mm-hmm.
seen as fake people. So I would avoid using a fake photo because that's got to be flag number one. Um, After that, though, there are profiles you can build for people. Like you could build those branded Web 2.0s that we talked about. So you
Mm-hmm.
could have, you know, Sally Mae WordPress.com, and Sally Mae is an expert in whatever it is you're talking about. And you could kind of build out those, and then you can use those in your same as. It's not too tricky to write a book, or at least have something that looks like a book and have it published in, Google Books,
Mm-hmm.
and other kind of scholarly type places, and then you can create profiles there. So there's a lot that you can do, and I think getting enough in there would probably get you past what Google's looking for.
As far as the social
Google.
profiles go, like, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, you think it'd be as, pretty much all you need to do is basically create the profile, get your picture on there, fill out the about section, whatnot, maybe make a post or
Yeah,
two, stuff like that.
that's about it. And keep in mind, Google will not be going there.
Mm.
Google isn't going to a LinkedIn profile. I'm like, oh, this person looks great. Let's read some of the articles that they've. Oh, wow, look at that. Like that's not happening with a bot. Like it's
What,
only
what,
what's
a-
on your site.
what about
It's
the
only what's on
actual
your site.
quality
So like
raters, like the human? Do you think a
they
human would do
might.
that?
I think they're supposed to. So they might go in, and then what they would say is like, hey, this really doesn't meet our standards for X, Y, or Z. And then from there, I think they're going to try to tweak what the bot is doing. Um,
But I mean, with the size of the internet, because I remember people talking about manual reviews via like, human eyes for PBNs and stuff like that. But I always found it like kind of a hard concept to stomach, in the sense that like, how large is this team and how many hours are they giving to scouring the endless internet?
I think you're 100% right.
I,
When was the last
yeah,
time you saw a manual penalty?
I have
I
no
haven't seen one in
idea.
years. I haven't seen one in
Yeah,
years.
mm-mm,
So I think
yeah.
it's all algorithmic at this point, and I think the manual penalty is just a boogeyman, in the same way that the quality rater might be a boogeyman as well. That their bot
gotcha.
is doing these things, but I would imagine at some point they have to do some quality control. I would hope,
Right, yeah, yeah,
and
it's
maybe this is how they do it. But you're right. The internet is such a large place; they're definitely not doing it for all keywords and all niches. They can't.
Actually, I did see a manual penalty. It wasn't on one of my sites. It's on one of the big like niche site Twitter personalities, and he got a manual penalty for link building, unnatural link building, and he's like
really.
he's very against building backlinks as well. So he wasn't even
Perfect.
building the backlinks himself, and he got popped for a manual link building penalty in 2023. This is actual
That's
like,
That's
amazing.
amazing.
Well, I haven't seen any in
Huh.
so long, and so I think when you can point out the manual penalty, like
Right.
yeah,
it's
that's
just
like
like
the only one
how
I've heard of.
rare, yeah. And it's I think speaks
Yeah, I
to
mean
Nick's
that's
point
like
too. The internet's
that's
huge.
that's getting struck by lightning kind of
Yeah,
bad luck.
For
exactly.
sure. Yeah, so kind of to wrap up Eat real quick. Yeah, just to recap, is there like a most important part? I know you're saying it's basically tick enough of the boxes, but if there were like maybe you just picture the average extremely lazy affiliate site owner and they want to tick as few of these boxes as possible, which ones would you tell them to tick?
you have to hit the trust. It is in the middle. They made it quite clear that that is the most important one. And so you have to do as much as you can in there before you worry about anything else.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right.
And Pop, just before we move on, Pop will help you kind of cover that in regards to what your competitors are doing, et cetera, right?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll pull out the EAT signals that we can find on your page and the EAT signals we can find on your competitor pages. And then we'll let you know like how many you have and how many they have. And in particular, like sometimes you'll see like, 7 of our competitors have this one thing and we don't have it. I would do that.
Yeah,
I would
that's a
I would
valuable
get in,
tool.
I would get in and do it that way. And it's really it's a check, it's just like because again, it's not going to push up rank at all, but you want to make sure that once Google does come and check your site out that you can get past it. And so that's what I would use. You want to kind of get those things in that you know you need to do. And then what I would do is I would do a double check, like, are my competitors doing something weird or something that I would not have thought of? And then that's then something I would make sure to get on my page.
That's
Nice.
interesting. It could also be a fairly good selling point for Pop because I had a kind of always seen Pop as like a surfer, Pop and Surfer kind of competitors as far as content optimization goes. But I don't believe Surfer has anything. I could be wrong, but kind of like site-wide checks for EAT. Yeah, is that something
I
unique
think
to Pop?
I don't want to overstate, but I think we might be the only tool that's doing it. Now, that might
That's
change
cool.
tomorrow, but I think we're the only ones having. And we've had it for a long time too. We've been playing with this for a couple of years.
Cool. Yeah, definitely
That's
a
awesome.
little bit of a
Yeah.
selling point there. Um, all right, so yeah, I think we're pretty much done with EAT. So now let's move on to the real reason people are tuning in, which is AI. So yeah, shiny object or super important? What do you think?
Somewhere in the middle. And I'm not overly concerned that the internet's going to die or that search is going to change or SEO is dead. SEO has been dead forever.
Forever.
There, like content spinners from 2012 are just going to end everything. FCF's networker creating mass Web 2.0s is going to end everything. Link farms, we're going to end everything. BERT and Mum and Hummingbird, we're all going to end everything, and they just haven't yet. And so
And you're taking us back.
yeah, as long as there is an algorithm, we'll be okay. As long as there's an algorithm, that means there will be SEO. And the only time that it won't be an algorithm is when it's humans that are actually doing it. And I think we've already covered that that's an impossibility.
Gotcha.
So if humans aren't picking it and an algorithm is picking it, we're going to be just fine. Now, one thing that they talk about is that it looks like in the release that they just had yesterday, for Bard.
Yeah.
What is that name?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a horrible name in my opinion. Sounds like an MMO,
Really.
like the guy who plays like the violin or something to
Are
boost
they
the
trying to
stats
like
of his
make a
party.
Shakespeare reference? I don't
Right.
really understand.
Yeah,
But
it's so weird.
the example that they show hilariously on an iPhone, I think, um, is a featured snippet. So it's really just a featured snippet type answer. Now, what was interesting is there wasn't any link attribution like there is in the featured snippet. So this is just pure
Mm,
thievery.
yeah.
They're
Right.
taking content from someone else and then claiming it as their own. And I don't think that's going to fly. I think that's going to be
Right.
lawsuits galore. And I think who's going to lead the charge on that will be the EU because you can't just steal people's stuff, spin it, and claim it's
Yeah.
yours. Because that's the other thing that's important to understand is that there's nothing AI about this. It's a content spinner. It's an amazing content spinner,
Hmm.
but it is just a content spinner. It's not
Yeah.
creating anything. It has to have documents to pull from.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, then it doesn't know. And that's because it's not writing anything new. It's simply spinning the information that it has. So because it's a fancy spinner, like if it's being used in mass by SEOs to create content, what's going to happen is I think it's just going to be detected as duplicate content is
Hmm.
detected. The same person or 50 people ask the same question, they're probably going to get the same answer. And then they're going to put that up on their websites, and then that's going to be just duplicate content. And Google is getting better, has been working on that for forever, and discounting content that it believes to be duplicate. So I think on that side of things, it'll just be a duplicate content type filter. And then on the search side of things, they're going to have to. I don't think they're going to be able to do their featured snippets through it without giving any kind of attribution, because that's theft. And uh, another point to make would be you can read something and be inspired. Let's say you read James Patterson novels and you
Hmm.
get inspired to write a James Patterson-esque story, right? That's inspiration.
Hmm.
Code can't be inspired. There is no such thing as inspiration in code. It's being taught how to steal.
Yeah.
So um, that's what's going to be. It's imminently problematic to have a featured snippet that has no source because it simply took from somewhere else, because it couldn't be creative. It couldn't have inspiration, and it couldn't just
Right.
reach back into like, oh, I remember this from last Tuesday, and here's the answer that I've got.
Yeah.
It had to take us somewhere. So those two sides of it is where I don't think AI is going to be the end of the world.
Hmm.
And as long as there's an algorithm, I think we'll be fine. And we could also, if they do decide they're just going to steal from everybody, we could opt out en masse, like you can with featured snippets with a no snippet tag, and say like, you can't use my content for free.
Block
And
Googlebot. Yeah.
yeah, and then what's going to happen there is that they're going to create a window for Bing to come in and take more market share, so long as Bing isn't stealing. And I'm sure they don't want to do that.
Yeah. Like you were saying, especially with people that don't really know a lot about SEO and they think like, oh, this ChatGPT is like AI, it's so smart. But like you were saying, it's literally just taking the
Mhm.
average. It's literally just looking at like what's said the most
Yeah.
from the most authoritative people and being like, has the highest probability of being correct. So this is the answer that we're giving. Um, so, while it is cool, I think it's a lot cooler for some other kind of things, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But yeah, I just feel like it's not quite as
Yeah.
cool as some people think as far as the answers it provides. And as far as the attribution and stuff, I feel like even if they do give attribution, but if the click-through rate on the things they attribute is so much smaller and they basically just kill all traffic going to websites, do you think it could ever happen that people just band together and kind of like sue anyway? Because like they're
Yeah.
still like, even though they're giving attribution, they will completely like destroy the internet as far as
Yeah.
anyone except for them is concerned.
Right. You're writing content for them for free,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
that won't fly. So that will be lawsuits galore.
Yeah. So maybe,
And
like you said, maybe Europe will save us on that one, right?
I think 100%. I think that's exactly what they're there for, and God bless them.
God bless them.
Nice.
Was there something you were about to ask, Nick? I feel like I kind of cut you off.
No,
Okay.
I don't know. It was probably just comment.
So yeah, then we were talking about besides just like the straight up answers that it can give, and yeah, that's cool for a minute or two. But then, are you using AI for anything else? Like before, we had talked about using it for content planning, putting together, the beginning stages of an article outline, for example. Yeah, so like, just what are you using AI for these days, if
That's
anything?
exactly what we're using for outlines, early rough drafts, just to kind of get an idea of where can we take this article or where should we take this article, but mostly for our very lower level stuff. So
Hmm.
not target page stuff, but supporting content stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be the nicest written content of all time, but it's
Hmm.
a really great starting point to fast track getting that content out. And then you do need to do a lot of human editing though. You can't just push a button and expect an article that's going to make a client happy, for example.
Yeah.
Um, and the more human editing do you bet the better, because that then will make it more unique, and I think will get you past any kind of AI/duplicate content type filters.
So
I
speak.
feel like anywhere that I see AI now or the term AI used, I would like them to use intuitive content spinner or something like that. We just switch it
Yeah.
over to ICS or something. Because it's a concept that I hadn't really considered until we're talking now. But yeah, I mean that is essentially what it is. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a fancy content spinner. It's a great one. It's amazing,
Yeah.
but it is just a content spinner.
Yeah, I'd
Mhm.
never heard it put like that either, but it really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, it simplifies like I mean, because everybody else is talking about it like it's this sort of computer god, so to speak. It's got some sort of intuition, but it's not. And typically, I think whenever we start seeing a bunch of hype go around like that, over the years in the SEO community, there's always a simplified version of it. It's code that is very linear and it's input here, output here. But it's a lot simpler than I think a lot of people are categorizing it currently.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely, I think it'll enhance search, and I think it'll enhance a lot of what you can do, and there'll be a lot of excellent applications. But as an SEO killer, as a job killer, as an inline killer, it just won't be.
Gotcha. So yeah, kind of to wrap up AI so we don't keep you too long. And probably the most asked question about AI these days, of course, is do you think Google either is currently penalizing AI content, or do you think they will in the future? Because it kind of seems like the conversation has started to move past um, does Google care about AI to does Google like the content? So basically, like, is the content good for readers versus is it AI and going to get a penalty on its own? What are
I
your
think
thoughts on that?
just by virtue of being AI, or isn't the issue. It's Google's always said the issue is this adding anything to the conversation,
Hmm.
or is it just regurgitating something that already exists? And that's always been what they try to do. Is they want something that adds to the conversation. They don't just want something that just spits back what is already there. And so that's really what duplicate content gets penalized for, is that it's not adding anything to the particular conversation. That's where I think AI comes in, and the stuff that I think that has been hit already, such as in the helpful content update, I believe by and large is going after large sites that have been generated purely by AI, because they are spam. They aren't adding anything to the conversation whatsoever. They're simply spinning pages and putting them up. And so I think that's already in play.
So what do you think the filter would look like for that kind of thing? So for example, a site starts adding, maybe hundreds of posts a day, or does it even need to be the fact that they're adding a bunch of content at the same time? It's just that they're adding content that literally says nothing different. It's just literally all of the exact same stuff at like too high of a percent, or how do you think
That's
that
right.
works?
In the exact same way that duplicate content is treated. Just the content is then completely devalued.
Gotcha.
Um, I think that's exactly how it'll go.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I felt like I was going to ask something else about AI, but that might be it. Do you have anything else to say about AI, Nick?
And I don't think so. We covered it pretty well.
Okay. So yeah, your advice for now is just to rewrite, kind of make it your own. Any other advice for people who are using AI and as it's getting started right now?
Yeah, idea generation is a great way to use it. That's a fantastic way to use it. Or asking like, what should be on this page? What should I cover? Those are good questions, because
Hmm.
then it's basically fast tracking, just going through like the people also ask, right? That's essentially what you're doing. You could use SEO Minion, and get
Sure.
layers of people also ask questions, or you could ask yeah, GPT.
I always forget it
Chat
too.
GPT might be a little faster, but Minion might be a little more comprehensive. So balance it.
Oh yeah, what I was going to say was that I just find it interesting because Google's kind of doing the do as I say, not as I do thing. Because they're essentially going to start
Constantly.
adding
Yeah.
ChatGPT. They're going to add it to the top. It's going to take over, the featured snippet area, whatever. It's going to take everyone's click-through rate, down to the floor, and it's essentially just rewriting content. So they're saying, okay, we're going to like take over the SERP with this. This is what everyone's going to see now, but you cannot do it. You cannot put this type of content on your own website, or you're going to get an algorithmic. You're going to get slapped.
Yeah.
100%. Or it's like, they take everybody's images and put them up in a carousel. Can I take everyone's images and put them on my site? No. But but they're allowed to do that. What?
Yeah.
Like, and even the featured snippet now, like they're just taking somebody's content and putting up there, and they're hoping that then their ads get recognized,
Hmm.
rather than somebody actually going
Yeah.
to a content creator's site. So yeah, I mean that's exactly Google's whole thing is we can steal, but you can't.
Yeah, yeah. I think after this conversation, I'm kind of getting a little more confident feeling, and yeah, I feel like lawsuits might end up being the decider on all this
Thanks
stuff.
for bringing them back. Thanks for bringing them back, Kyle.
Pulling them off the cliff.
Yeah.
It's gonna be okay, buddy. It's gonna
Thank
be
you for the
okay.
therapy session. Thank you very much.
You
Yeah,
got it.
so we're gonna go ahead and kind of wrap things down here. I had a couple more questions for you just to kind of wind the podcast down. I wanted to start with a quote I had stole from you. It says, "Grammar is not a ranking factor. Spelling is not a ranking factor. Reading level is not a ranking factor. The algorithm doesn't care about those things because it doesn't read as humans do." Um,
Yeah.
so I wanted to ask you, do you think those things that you specifically mentioned can indirectly affect ranking signals through, or rank, do you think they can indirectly affect ranking through user experience signals? And then a second part of the question, what do you think the most important ranking factors are moving forward here in 2023?
I'm not overly concerned about user experience signals because they're super hard to measure. So I don't really know what would necessarily be seen as a good user experience. If somebody goes to they do a search and then they click on the website and they read the article and they got their information and then they leave. Was that a bad experience?
I would say probably not.
No, it was the best experience. They got the answer that they needed and then they left.
Hmm.
So I know that there's something in there to those signals, but I don't really think that Google's going to penalize people for that type of scenario. Um, so I don't worry about that too much in terms of how those things go, or like if if people are going to be turned off by content that has grammatical errors. I think they just want the information that they were looking for. I think that's I think that's the
Yeah.
goal at the end of the day. So I don't know how you penalize somebody for that good experience when I think that happens quite often.
You might piss off a bunch of
Um,
people with that statement. I know a lot of people
I'm
are,
okay with
are
that. I'm
very
okay with
aboard
that.
the UX, the user experience train. But yeah, most important ranking factors for 2023.
Hmm. The top four places to put a keyword have
Hmm.
been the same since I've been testing since 2015.
Domain
So
URL title H1.
there it is,
Boom,
and
baby.
get it one time in the paragraph tags. You know what? A lot of the fancy page builders don't always use HTML. They'll put content in div tags, and I would watch out for that because Google can get there eventually, but you're really shooting yourself in the foot by not having it in proper paragraph tags or like
Interesting.
heading tags, for
I
example. Like
actually
if you're
had
doing
a
a heading.
guy.
Huh.
We had a guy in our group the other day, and it was the first time someone had showed something like this, and they were going through and they were redoing their on page because they noticed that, like
Yeah.
you had said, I think their H tags were in divs or for whatever reason, and they were kind of freaking out about it.
It's
Um,
something we get in Pop every once in a while. Someone will hit support and say, like, I've got a whole page, but Pop says my word count's 4, and I'll look at it and be like, oh, I got
Huh.
everything in a div tag, my man. And, Google will get there eventually, but I think it will take more time than it needs to. And I think the content will also be devalued.
Gotcha, gotcha. Um, yeah, so I know you're a busy guy. You've got the agency, you've got Pop, you've got IMG. What am I missing? I feel like I'm missing something.
Those are the big things.
Family.
Those are the big ones. Okay. So
Family.
yeah, family, of course. That's a lot of stuff to juggle. So what do you do? When your day is winding down or on the weekends to kind of relax, to kind of wind down, and do not include networking on this list.
Sure, sure. So uh, I love BBC crime drama, like, desperately.
Really?
And
Okay.
there are two channels that I have through Amazon Prime, Acorn and oh no, I can't think of the other one. BritBox. There it is. And so I surf through those and I find some terrible. They're not terrible. A lot of them are quite good, but some of them are kind of terrible. But sort of crime drama. Or what's worse is I love crime comedy. The ones that are like murder is hilarious, and like you've got like, like the goofy detective and his wacky sidekick, and they bumble their way through solving some ridiculous murder. I love that desperately, so I watch a lot of those shows.
Did you see the new
Oh, that's
movie with
fun.
the James Bond guy? I forgot his name. But yeah, it's kind of like murder mystery comedy type thing.
Yeah, the Knives Out last
Yeah.
night. That is exact.
Mhm.
That's right up my alley. That is right up
Okay.
my alley.
Yeah, I just watched the new one on Netflix
Yeah.
the other day. It's pretty
Yeah,
good.
when I saw that, I was like, yes.
It's cool.
Okay, good to know. And then yeah, last thing. So I know you're out in Chiang Mai right now, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, convince me or anyone else in SEO to come to Chiang Mai instead of messing around in Bangkok or wherever else we're at.
Well, this is the Mecca. I mean, if you want to level up your game, this is where you want to be. That's the bottom line. The community here is second to none. Where you will, if you want to learn more, if you want to grow, if you want to improve, the opportunities here, and this community will help you and wants to help you. We have a real abundance mentality here. The idea is that if you succeed, if you make money, we all succeed. We all make money,
Hmm.
and and we're all learning and growing together. There are guys that are having multi-million-dollar exits here, and there are guys that are making $100 a month and they want to grow. So it's
Hmm.
this wide range of people, wide range of skills, and so we do weekly meetups, we do quarterly masterminds. We're doing we're organizing a thing where we're going to teach people how to do an SEO audit. And then we are going to provide audits to local businesses and then also local people online for $50. Say like a $500 audit for $50 so that those people can learn how to do the audit. And then the $50 goes to a local charity. And then
Oh,
we're also
nice.
going to we're going to match that amount as well.
That's
So
awesome.
that's the kind of stuff we try to get into here where, you learn how to do an audit so you can level up. You can run that on your own site. You learn a lot by doing an audit on somebody else's site. You learn a ton. And then so the site so people can let it level up their game. The site gets a great audit and then a local charity gets benefited as well. So that's the kind of stuff that we're doing up here. And if that interests you, then this is the place to be.
That's
Awesome.
awesome.
Might have to come check it out once
You
I'm
should.
allowed to go back.
Mhm.
Speaking of that, or maybe I won't ask about this. I was going to ask about your visa situation, but
Oh,
yeah.
that's fine.
Are you
I
doing, did you go ahead and
I
just
have
pay
a,
the 15?
I did. Yeah, I've got the elite visa.
Gotcha.
So that starts off as a 5-year visa, and it's you pass a background check, and then it's just cash after that. And then you have the option. So it's a 5-year visa to start, and then you can upgrade for another 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not even 1 year into that visa yet, but I think I'm going to upgrade and get the additional 15 because they just tack it on to the end, just in case like visa rules change or they decide not to run this visa in the future. Then I've got 20 years here. And it's a come and go as you please type visa.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I was kind of doing the math on it, and basically the money you would save from being able to rent normally versus Airbnb all the time pretty much pays for the visa itself. So
Yeah, no visa runs. You don't get hassled at the border.
yeah.
Like, you actually get a fast track immigration lane too. So you don't have to go with like all you poor
Oh,
people through
oh,
immigration.
that's the real perk. Okay, stay away from me, dirty normies. Okay.
Yeah, no, you don't want to breathe that air.
All right, Kyle. Yeah, it's been awesome talking to you, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, and hopefully we can talk to you more as time moves forward and we got more stuff to talk about. Is there
yeah.
anything you want to say to our audience or anything you want to plug? Where can they find you? All that stuff before we let you go.
They can go to kyleroof.com. That's where all my stuff is, and that's pretty easy. So kyleroof.com, and everything's there, and they can see what I'm working on and my stuff.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, great to have
Very
you,
cool.
and yeah, hope to see you around.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Be sure to check the links below for more info on this topic, as well as other cool stuff like SEO case studies, our Facebook community, and our link building services. And like always, please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thanks, and happy ranking.